Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 9 Part 7 based on novel. So let's start. A strange dark and cold laughter was emitted from the mouth of the three-headed demon snake, while a cruel smile hung from the corners of his mouth. His scarlet eyes stared at Lin Dong. Soon after, his laughter gradually became louder. It was as though he had just heard an extremely laughable matter. Of course, perhaps he was not the only person who felt that this scene was funny. After all, a mere 9-yuan Nirvana stage expert actually dared to utter such words to an initial profound life stage demonic beast. It was comical no matter how one looked at it. The younger generation these days are becoming increasingly unaware of their limits. Hee, so be it. Allow this king to see just what kind of price you can make me pay. The cruel smile that hung from the corner of the three-headed demon snake's mouth grew even wider. Quickly after, his large hand grabbed the trident tightly, as an overwhelming fiendish aura unfurled from within his body. Everyone could tell that this overlord of mysterious Spirit Island had truly been angered. This fool actually dares to provoke the three-headed demon snake. He is really seeking death. Wei Song ridiculed as he watched this scene and involuntarily began to gloat. It is just as well. I will launch a sneak attack later on to kill that brat and snatch the life mysterious spirit fruits. That black-clothed person spoke indifferently. Bang! While everyone present was looking at the furious three-headed demon snake, the eyes of the latter also became increasingly ferocious. In the next instant, the trident in his hand suddenly hacked downwards, and a powerful berserk black pillar shot out and headed straight for Lin Dong. Lin Dong watched this violent attack that was sweeping towards him, and merely smiled as he raised his hand. A scarlet red light rushed out from within, and directly collided with that wild and violent black pillar. A clear dong sound was emitted when the two clashed. The black pillar swiftly collapsed, while that scarlet red light did not even budge. After which, the light dimmed, and turned into a scarlet-red cauldron in front of many stunned eyes. The scarlet-red cauldron hovered in the air. Wave after wave of extremely majestic energy ripples swiftly spread outwards, causing the entire space to show signs of becoming distorted. Pure Yuan treasure. Everyone's expressions were slightly altered upon sensing the powerful ripple. Immediately, their eyes stared intently at the scarlet-red cauldron. Clearly, they did not expect that Lin Dong actually had such a powerful soul treasure in his hands. This brat, he is actually in possession of a pure yuan treasure. Wei Song frowned slightly after seeing this scene. Immediately, he let out a cold laughter. A pure yuan treasure was indeed powerful, but it was still difficult for Lin Dong to defeat an initial profound life stage expert. No wonder you dare to be so arrogant. Your trump card is a pure yuan treasure. The three-headed demon snake's face revealed a stunned expression, before he shook his head and laughed in a strange manner. However, Lin Dong did not say anything in response to this cold laughter. He smiled slightly, as the seal formed by his hands changed. Many scarlet red light rings suddenly erupted from the burning sky cauldron in the sky. Finally, the body of the cauldron abruptly swelled. Within a couple of breaths' time, it had turned into a several hundred feet large object that towered in the sky. Bang! Wave after wave of berserk scorching fluctuations continued to spread from within the cauldron. In the next moment, an enormous scarlet red light pillar suddenly erupted, and directly shot towards the three-headed demon snake. Humph! That three-headed demon snake let out a cold snort upon seeing this. With a stomp of his foot, a several hundred feet large wave suddenly rose from the lake below, and ruthlessly collided against the scarlet red light pillar. Bang! A loud sound reverberated across the sky, as hot humid air spread like a faint fog. Is this all your pure yuan treasure can do? The three-headed demon snake lifted his head and laughed coldly. The smile on Lin Dong's face became even wider in response to the mockery of the three-headed demon snake. However, that smile was filled with iciness. Immediately, the seal formed by his hand changed, and the cover of the burning sky cauldron fell off. After which, the cauldron tilted over and locked onto the three-headed demon snake below. Burning sky cauldron, swallow! These icy cold words were suddenly emitted from Lin Dong's mouth. Bang! After Lin Dong's voice sounded, everyone saw a scarlet-red circle of light suddenly rush out. It seemed to penetrate space and directly covered the three-headed demon snake below. Subsequently, a wave of frightening suction force erupted. The lake below turned into a water pillars which were continuously sucked into the burning sky cauldron. Wild and violent energy crazily exploded from the three-headed demon snake's body, as he forcibly resisted the suction force. However, his expression became a little ugly as he discovered that his body was slowly being sucked towards the burning sky cauldron regardless of how he resisted. There is no need to be so afraid. We are only changing the place where we will battle. Lin Dong watched the three-headed demon snake struggle as he continued to resist. With a smile, Lin Dong lifted his hand seal slightly, causing the suction force to strengthen once again. After which, everyone was stunned to see the three-headed demon snake actually turning into a thread of light as he was sucked into the burning sky cauldron. That enormous cauldron suddenly shook violently after the three-headed demon snake was sucked into it, as loud sounds were emitted from within it. It was possible to vaguely hear the furious roars of the three-headed demon snake. Brat, do you really think that you can trap this king with this broken cauldron of yours? However, Lin Dong ignored the roars. His gaze shifted and locked onto the black-clothed person nearby, as a smile once again surfaced on his face. Since you wish to play, you should also head inside. The mouth of the burning sky cauldron was turned after Lin Dong's voice sounded. It immediately locked onto the black-clothed person who was just about to withdraw. After which, a frightening suction force erupted once again. Brat, your appetite is a little too great. You have just eaten an initial profound life-stage demonic beast, and yet you are still thinking to eating me too. Aren't you afraid that will be too much for you to handle? The black-clothed person surprisingly did not panic when he was targeted by Lin Dong. Instead, he smiled in a sinister manner. From the looks of the trembling burning sky cauldron, it was clearly unable to trap an initial profound life-stage expert. Yet, Lin Dong was still planning to suck him in too. This was clearly very foolish. Won't you know whether I can eat all of you once you try? Lin Dong smiled. Soon after, the suction force intensified, and forcibly sucked that black-clothed person into the burning sky cauldron in front of everyone's eyes. After the black-clothed person was also sucked into the burning sky cauldron, the atmosphere in the air above the lake became a little strange. Many experts had solemn and wary expressions. They clearly did not expect that Lin Dong actually possessed such tactics. Ha ha, it is indeed not easy for you to rely on your 9 Yuan Nirvana stage strength to achieve this. However, just how long can you last? Wei Song slightly narrowed his eyes and laughed coldly. A deafening noise once again sounded from the burning sky cauldron after Wei Song's voice faded, as the cauldron trembled wildly, and light seeped out from the mouth of the cauldron. It seemed as though the two people inside were forcibly trying to break free. Even with a pure Yuan treasure, Lin Dong was unable to trap an initial profound life-stage expert and a divine symbol master for long. Lin Dong's eyes glanced indifferently at Wei Song. He tilted his head towards Ji Yu Yang and asked, "Are you able to resolve the situation here?" "Yes." Ji Yu Yang nodded. As long as the divine symbol master did not intervene, their strength would not be inferior to Wei Song's group. Ji Yu Yang looked at the burning sky cauldron that was trembling wildly. She was aware that these were small problems. The greatest challenge was the two people inside the burning sky cauldron. "Leave the both of them to me." Lin Dong smiled. Now that his strength had risen, he was gradually able to unleash the powers of this burning sky cauldron. He might still be faced with some trouble if he had to fight the two alone outside. However, once those two entered the burning sky cauldron, their strength would end up being suppressed regardless of how capable they were. Understood. Be careful. Although Ji Yu Yang still had some doubts after seeing Lin Dong's appearance, she did not say anything else. She understood that if Lin Dong was defeated, not only would they be unable to obtain even a single life mysterious spirit fruit, but their lives would also be threatened. Now, they could only hope that Lin Dong was truly able to finish off those two most troublesome fellows. Lin Dong nodded. He did not tarry any longer, as his body moved and transformed into a flash of light that rushed into the large burning sky cauldron before the many watching gazes. After his entry, the originally violently trembling burning sky cauldron also gradually began to calm down. However, everyone could imagine the desperate great battle that would occur inside. This place was a scarlet-red world. Nothing else entered one's eyes but a dry and barren land. Traces of hot air rose from the ground, causing the air to appear slightly distorted. Rumble. However, the peace in this place did not last for long, before a loud rumbling sound suddenly appeared. Two figures with gloomy expression were standing in the air as they unleashed wild and violent attacks, ferociously blasting the surrounding space. Under their barrage of attacks, some distortion began to appear. You two, it is not nice to act so irritable in someone else's territory, no? While these two people were ferociously attacking the surrounding space, a teasing laughter suddenly resounded across the area. After which, a young figure appeared in the dark and chilly gazes of the black-clothed person and the three-headed demon snake. The figure which had appeared nearby was Lindong. "Brat, you are playing with fire." The three-headed demon snake firmly stared at Lindong. His deep voice was filled with savageness. "You can't possibly believe that you can rely on this pure treasure to trap the both of us here, right? That is a little too absurd, don't you agree?" That black-clothed person spoke in a dark and cold manner. From the way he saw it, this burning sky cauldron might indeed be very powerful, but after all, Lindong only possessed the strength of the 9-yuan nirvana stage. He was really a little too naive if he planned to trap the two of them with just this. No matter how one put it, the gap between the profound life stage and the nirvana stage was really too large. However, Lindong merely smiled in a non-committal manner in response to the black-clothed man's sneer. "Brother Snake, I am Xu Yun, an initial divine symbol master. Shall we cooperate and break this cauldron?" The black-clothed person looked at the three-headed demon snake as he faintly smiled and said. The three-headed demon snake rubbed his smooth head. After which, his cunning scarlet eyes took another look at Xu Yun. An initial divine symbol master. With such strength, he did have the qualifications to cooperate with him. "All right, however, I will be the one to take that brat's life." "No problem." Xu Yun smiled and nodded. In the next instant, his eyes suddenly became dark and vicious. With a clench of his hand, majestic mental energy swept out, causing the space itself to vibrate continuously. Bang! The three-headed demon snake was even more straightforward. His scarlet eyes stared at Lindong, as his body moved, transforming into a scarlet red light figure that shot out. The trident in his hand tore through the air, and pierced towards Lindong at lightning speed. "Even if you are a dragon, you can only crawl on the ground in my territory." Lindong gazed at the three-headed demon snake as he charged towards Lindong in an overbearing manner. A cold light surged in Lindong's eyes, as the seal formed by his hands changed rapidly. One could see scarlet red light shooting out from the space behind him, forming a light curtain in front of him. The trident ruthlessly slammed onto the light curtain. A wild and violent energy came pouring out, shaking the light curtain until it trembled wildly. "Soul Lion Roar!" The far-away Xu Yun suddenly cried out coldly while the light curtain was blocking the three-headed demon snake's attack. Majestic mental energy transformed into a giant 100 feet large lion. The giant lion lifted its head and roared. A mental energy sonic wave actually agglomerated into a corporeal form. It adopted a spiral shape that tore through the air and ruthlessly struck the light curtain. Crack! Many cracks were formed on the light curtain due to the wild and violent attacks from the two. Finally, the light curtain was blasted apart. Evidently, even after borrowing the power of the burning sky cauldron, it was difficult for Lindong to directly block the attacks from those two. "Brat, do you realize just how weak you are now?" Xu Yun mocked coldly after seeing this. "It is indeed a little troublesome. Looks I'll have to finish you guys off one at a time." Lindong grinned. Immediately, his fingertips pressed against each other, and essence blood seeped out. Subsequently, his fingers moved and drew many blood symbols. "Burning Sky Array, activate." A calm voice was emitted from Lindong's mouth. Subsequently, the land began to tremble violently. Soon after, the land cracked open, and many scarlet red light pillars were spat out from within. These light pillars interweaved with each other, and actually transformed into an enormous mysterious light formation. Restrain! The light formation took shape, and immediately began to cover the three-headed demon snake. You wish to trap this king? In your dreams. The expression of the three-headed demon snake sunk after he saw the light formation covering him. The trident in his hand ferociously thrust forward, and a several hundred feet large wind pillar viciously smashed into the formation. Bang! However, the three-headed demon snake's ferocious attack only caused the light curtain to tremble a little. Seeing this, the three-headed demon snake's expression could not help but became a little ugly. He clearly did not expect that this formation would actually be so powerful. Stay inside for a while. Lin Dong glanced at the ugly expression of the three-headed demon snake. This burning sky array was built from the full power of the burning sky cauldron. Although it was unable to kill the latter, it was not difficult to trap him. Now, it's your turn. Lin Dong turned his head after trapping the three-headed demon snake, and icily smiled at Xu Yun. You suicidal thing. Do you think that you are a match for me in a one-on-one battle? Xu Yun's eyes focused on the formation that had trapped the three-headed demon snake, before he sneered. Lin Dong chuckled, and did not bother to chat anymore. Quickly after, Xu Yun saw black light patterns appearing between the former's brows. After which, a thread of light shot out and transformed into a black symbol that hovered above Lin Dong's head. The symbol did not have a fixed form. As it wiggled and squirmed, it appeared just like a circular black hole. Wave after wave of strange energy scattered from it. It was as though even the surrounding light was being devoured by it. This is... Xu Yun looked at the black hole-like ancient symbol and was initially startled. His eyes suddenly shrunk a moment later, as rich shock and disbelief finally surfaced on his pale face. Devouring ancestral symbol? An extremely stunned voice was emitted from Xu Yun's mouth at this moment. He stared blankly at that ancient black hole symbol while a great storm churned in his heart. As a divine symbol master, Xu Yun was naturally familiar with the ancestral symbols. They were one of the most powerful godly articles in the world, and there were a total of 8 of them. One would be able to become an all-powerful pinnacle existence in the world by just obtaining any one of them. Those who had obtained any of the 8 ancestral symbols were currently all renowned pinnacle existences in this world. An example was Hall Chief Mo Luo of the Fire Divine Hall in the Lava Sea region of the Chaotic Demon Sea. He possesses the blazing ancestral symbol. This had also allowed him to become an overlord-level existence within this chaotic demon sea that was filled with many strong individuals. This person stood at the peak of the chaotic demon sea. He was looked up to and respected by countless experts. All these achievements were related to the blazing ancestral symbol. However, Xu Yun had now seen that the most mysterious of the 8 ancestral symbols, the devouring ancestral symbol, had actually appeared in the hands of a young man who was only at the 9 Yuan Nirvana stage. The shock that this created was really difficult to describe. You actually possess the devouring ancestral symbol. The shock on Xu Yun's face began to gradually disappear a moment later. After which, an extremely scarlet red glint flashed across his eyes. It was an extreme greed and craziness. At this moment, Xu Yun had undoubtedly begun to lose his rationality in the face of such temptation. He knew that if he could obtain the devouring ancestral symbol, he would definitely be an existence akin to Mo Luo in the future. Brat! Xu Yun's face was distorted due to greed as stared intently at Lin Dong while he laughed in a sinister manner. What a foolish fellow. You don't even know the simple logic of not revealing one's wealth. Do you know how miserable your situation will become if word that you possess the devouring ancestral symbol was to spread? Given the great power of the ancestral symbol, Lin Dong would likely become the target that all factions within the chaotic demon sea would chase, if word that he possessed the devouring ancestral symbol was to spread. At that time, it was likely that he would have no place to hide regardless of how big the world was, unless he was as powerful as Mo Luo. Lin Dong smiled faintly as he looked at the ferocious-looking Xu Yun. A frosty expression slowly spread from the corners of his mouth. After which, he softly said, "Don't worry. You will not leave this place alive." Lin Dong extended his hand after his voice sounded. It aimed at the far-off Xu Yun, before it was suddenly clenched. Bang! After his hand was clenched, the devouring ancestral symbol above his head suddenly exploded, and countless black light rays began to pour down like a storm. The devouring ancestral symbol had finally begun to reveal its overwhelming might at this moment. Threads of black light swept out in all directions like a storm, directly covering 100 feet radius around Xu Yun. It seemed that faint black scars appeared on even empty space itself wherever these black light threads passed. Xu Yun watched this attack, as a grave expression that could not be hidden surged onto his face. He might have looked down on Lin Dong earlier, but with the appearance of the devouring ancestral symbol, he had immediately raised the threat Lin Dong posed to the highest level. This was because he was aware that in spite of the great gap between their strength, it was very possible for a godly object like the devouring ancestral symbol to make up for this difference. Xu Yun's eyes were dark and cold. The seal formed by his hand changed, and mental energy wildly rushed out like a storm, before swiftly turning into 100 feet large mental energy storm around his body. Mental energy was not as violent and mighty as Yuan power. However, under this seeming milder force, hid a lethal force that could completely destroy one's soul. If a person was injured in a battle of Yuan power, there would only be some physical wounds. However, if one was injured by mental energy, one would truly suffer a serious injury. So much so, that even one's mind would be greatly affected. The mental energy storm surrounded Xu Yun's body, thoroughly protecting him inside it. As the storm rotated, even space itself began to show signs of being distorted. The black light threads that seemingly filled the entire sky arrived when the mental energy storm was formed. Crashing sound was emitted as they collided against the storm. However, these black light threads would be scattered and smashed by the rotating storm when they penetrated the latter. The devouring ancestral symbol is indeed powerful, but with this weak strength of yours, it is merely a waste of a precious natural treasure. A dark and cold smile immediately surfaced on Xu Yun's face after seeing this scene. Do you really think that it is this easy to shatter devouring power? However, Lin Dong merely smiled in the face of Xu Yun's cold smile. That smile of his had a trace of strangeness. Xu Yun's heart shivered upon hearing these words. He hurriedly focused his mind, and his pupils tightly shrunk as he discovered that some deep black lights had actually appeared within the storm at an unknown time. The black lights appeared was like countless locusts that continued to devour the surrounding mental energy. Damn it! Xu Yun's dark and cold face had finally become ugly. He hurriedly maneuvered his mental energy, as he attempted to expel the black lights. However, he soon discovered that these black lights were just like maggots that had infested one's bones. They adhered onto his mental energy, and was impossible to remove. Is this the power of the devouring ancestral symbol? Cold sweat began to seep out from Xu Yun's forehead. He could sense that his own mental energy was actually rapidly disappearing. This caused him to feel some anxiety in his heart. Lin Dong did not fight him head-on, but this devouring power was just like a parasite to Xu Yun, adhering onto the latter's mental energy and devouring this strength. More and more black lights began to appear within the energy storm as time passed. That appearance was just like it was being invaded by a virus. Bastard! A dark and gloomy expression flashed across Xu Yun's face. He immediately clenched his teeth and decisively cut off the connection between the mental energy and his body. After which, his body swiftly pulled back with the intent of withdrawing from the mental energy storm that had already been invaded by devouring light. I'm afraid it is too late if you wish to leave now. However, Lin Dong smiled faintly after seeing Xu Yun's actions. Immediately, black light flowed deep within his eyes, causing him to appear rather strange. Devouring seal. A soft voice was emitted from Lin Dong's mouth, and soon after, his hand seals suddenly froze. A black light beam suddenly exploded from the devouring ancestral symbol in the sky the moment Lin Dong's hands halted. After which, it shot towards the enormous energy storm in the distance. With the arrival of this black light beam, the originally rotating mental energy storm immediately came to a halt. The devouring light within suddenly erupted at this moment, as many black threads spread. In the end, they swiftly interweaved with each other and actually transformed into an enormous black seal which enveloped the entire mental energy storm. The moment the seal was formed, the entire mental energy storm had transformed into a prison made of devouring power. Bang! 100 feet large mental energy long spear took shape in Xu Yun's hand. After which, he ruthlessly shot it towards the energy storm that had been enveloped by the black seal. However, the long spear swiftly crumbled upon contact. The mental energy covering it was also quickly swallowed by devouring power. Restrain! Lin Dong's eyes were indifferent as he watched Xu Yun, whose face had begun to reveal some panic. Soon after, his hand seal changed, and countless black light threads shot out in all directions. They flickered and actually transformed into many black chains, which shot towards Xu Yun with shocking speed. Xu Yun's expression changed drastically upon seeing this. Majestic mental energy hurriedly turned into a powerful barrier around him in an attempt to block the attack. However, his attempt was completely futile. The devouring chains that were filled with devouring power cut through the mental energy barrier like hot knife through butter. Soon after, they pierced Xu Yun's body under his horrified gaze, as a low ear-piercing sound resounded over the sky. Using mental energy in front of the devouring ancestral symbol, I can only say that you truly are an idiot, Lin Dong spoke in an unsympathetic manner as he lowered his head and looked at Xu Yun, whose body had been penetrated by dozens of devouring chains. The devouring power of the devouring ancestral symbol greatly restrained pure energy like this. Hence, from Lin Dong's perspective, dealing with a divine symbol master was far easier than dealing with an initial profound life stage expert. However, this Xu Yun was indeed too arrogant. Xu Yun frantically struggled. However, the intense pain that was emitted from within his body caused him to be unable to move. No blood flowed out from the spots where the chains had penetrated through his body. This was because he could sense that everything within his body was gradually being devoured by the devouring power that had invaded his body. His consciousness was beginning to become blurry amidst this devouring. Lin Dong, my master is the sinecure of the demonic wind cave. If you dare to touch me, your fate will definitely be incomparably miserable. Xu Yun braced himself. His eyes were ferocious as he stared at Lin Dong and cried out sternly. Demonic wind cave. Lin Dong lifted his brow slightly. Although he was able to guess that the background of this person was definitely not simple, he did not expect that he would actually be from the demonic wind cave, one of the two strongest caves in the Heaven Wind Sea region. That's right, Lin Dong, you are also an intelligent person. You should be aware of just what kind of great disaster it would be to offend the demonic wind cave. If you hand the devouring ancestral symbol over to my demonic wind cave, it would definitely be a great service. The demonic wind cave will not treat you badly in future. Xu Yun hurriedly cried out after seeing this. Lin Dong fondled his chin with his hand. He mused for a moment in front of Xu Yun's anxious eyes, before his mouth parted into a grin, revealing his sinisterly white teeth. This scene immediately caused Xu Yun's heart to sink a little. I'm sorry, I do not wish to hand over the devouring ancestral symbol. Hence, I am also not going to let you off. Lin Dong's eyes instantly turned dark after his words sounded. Soon after, he clenched his hand, as the dozen devouring chains that penetrated Xu Yun's body suddenly exploded. Black light spread, transforming into a black hole that completely devoured Xu Yun in front of the latter's terrified eyes. Lin Dong patted his hands with an indifferent expression after having completely devoured Xu Yun, before he slowly turned around. Those calm eyes of his looked towards the three-headed demon snake, which was trapped within the burning sky array. At this moment, the three-headed demon snake no longer dared to make any noise. His expression was extremely nervous and afraid as he stared at Lin Dong. The ruthlessness that the latter displayed when he unhesitatingly killed Xu Yun allowed the three-headed demon snake to understand that the young man in front of him was no saint. Damn! If I had known that this brat is so ruthless, I would not have intervened. A bitter expression flashed across the three-headed demon snake's eyes. He never imagined that something that should have been easily resolved would actually develop in such a way. Next, it's your turn. Lin Dong looked at the three-headed demon snake and smiled. That smile caused even the unusually ferocious three-headed demon snake to feel a chill rising in his heart. This video will end here.